In case you haven't heard the big news, the 100 Girlfriends anime got its official Season 3 announcement this past weekend. Not only that, but it's coming out next year. Like, I think a lot of you probably don't even realize how big of a deal this is. So few anime get to Season 3, especially in the rom-com genre. And trust me, I should know, rom-com is my most consumed genre of anime, and most of them don't get to Season 3, even if there was more material to cover. So this is a huge win for not only the franchise, but rom-coms as a whole. Especially for something like a comedy harem rom-com that has some questionable things that tend to put people off. I think Travis Mullinex, who is the English voice actor for Rentaro, put it best when it comes to the public reception of this series sometimes. So the fact that things seem to be going good for the franchise well enough that funding a Season 3 became a reality is a really good sign. I always thought and still do think this franchise is still in the niche demographic, but this is a clear sign that it's moving on up. So let's keep up the momentum, everyone. I know I say this in every video to go support the series in any official means to keep it going, and this is exactly the reason why. So instead this time I'll be thanking everyone who has supported the series, whether you buy the manga, watch the anime, purchase merchandise, or supported the series in any kind of official way. You made all this happen, so you all deserve a round of applause. And now that the gratitude and professional section is out of the way, it's time to be petty. What? Suck it, Komi! Can't make 100 friends without a Season 3 to meet them all! Who's the real harem rom-com now, King Girlfriend? This is what you get for being a bully in the first episode, Nagatoro. Guess no one wants to hang out with Uzuki-chan anymore. Looks like Kubo will let you be invisible. To the audience anime, that is. You may be more than a married couple, but you're definitely not getting another season anytime soon. Hagane, I don't have many friends. More like I don't have many seasons. In all seriousness though, this is great news all around, and we as a community should be proud of supporting our favorite group of weirdos and their misadventures for this long and hopefully for the foreseeable future. Especially because this announcement art seems to be teasing that it may be a two-core endeavor, but that's not currently confirmed. I'll talk more about that in my Season 3 prediction video. Yes, I am returning to my roots on this channel with a Season 3 prediction video. I don't know when I'll get to it, but I do want to as soon as possible. But until then, let's get back to supporting this series by talking about the latest chapter. I'm Moonlight150, and this is my overview of the latest chapter of the 100 Girlfriends manga and its accompanying third season, Chapter 232, A Day with Rentaro's Family and Nurse GI. Go spread your excitement for Season 3 by supporting Zune-scans with reading the chapter where they post them, and especially supporting the official releases in your region, because look at what happens when you do. You guys did that. Now, onto the chapter. We're changing things up with this Meet the Family chapter. Instead of starting up on the rooftop, we're seeing a regular day in the life for Nurse GI, if you couldn't tell by the name of the chapter, before the subsequent meeting at the end of the day on the rooftop like usual. As it turns out, the members of the Rentaro family are frequent visitors to the school infirmary. Why am I not surprised? We start with the girls of Class 1-1, Akko and Sue, as it seems Sue scraped the top of her hand during gym class. How do you even do that? If you fall, you usually hurt the palm of your hand. I'm not going to think about it too hard like regarding many things about Sue, but we get a new side of Sue that we haven't seen before, as it seems she is very averse to treatment because healing treatments tend to hurt more, such as like with hydrogen peroxide, which is a common method of taking care of scrapes of these sorts. But it looks like the scrape isn't that bad in needing of that kind of medical treatment, and just needs some cleaning and bandaging. Following that, we have the youngins of Class 1-1 on the middle school side of Eru, Matsuri, and Chiyo. Judging by their attire, Matsuri also hurt herself during gym class, but this one is more believable being on the forearm. The old rough and rumble type that is Matsuri tries to brush it off as nothing, and it just needs a bit of spit to fix it up. But Eru here is more worried about it possibly leaving a scar. And I just gotta talk about this line for a second. Pause everything, Earl. We're doing a deep dive analysis. Psst, Earl, make me move. I'm really fascinated by this line from Eru, as it kind of cultivates ideas that I and others in the community have had about her. Eru seems to have these stereotypical gender norms that she holds to the highest degree in her mind, about what a quote-unquote girl is in regard to society at large. An image that you must uphold because you are a girl, and this image is viewed as a social status. We can trace this back to her very first panel, as we see her basically just showing off what she probably believes is her high social status of being this pristine stereotypical example of a traditional girl, wanting the gawping of onlookers. She equates appearances with worth, because in a lot of traditional gender norm outlooks from various societies, especially in decades past, girls only were valued based on their looks. And because of this, Eru probably has a lot of insecurities and fears from anything that can tarnish or blemish her appearance as a girl. But 100 Girlfriends puts their own spin on this idea by having everything revolving around this mindset focused primarily on her twin tails and nothing more, to add some levity to the topic because it's a comedy series after all. making this serious mirror on society and how women have been viewed in the past and still sometimes are today by taking it in a goofy direction with an obsession with twin tails. We got hints of this in her later appearances, the biggest and most obvious being when we see young Eru visibly upset as she doesn't accept anything but having twin tails in regards to her looks, because she believes that's when she looks her absolute best and is not willing to compromise on anything less for the sake of what she believes needs to be done to achieve what girls need to do for the sake of their looks and standing in society. What comes to mind would be something similar to how women would sacrifice their health for the sake of their looks, like when women from the Victorian era would wear corsets super tight to the point that it was damaging their internal organs to achieve a smaller waist. Or how in China there was the practice of foot binding, which involved breaking and folding toes so they could achieve smaller and more arched looking feet. But like I said, Nakamura is taking this horrid ideology and putting a goofy spin on it where the whole idea of her perfect self comes from having twin tails. And just a reminder that this idea wasn't put on her by someone like her mother trying to achieve the most perfectly beautiful daughter. She actively tried to encourage her that she looks just as good without her twin tails, but Eru was having none of it. This is something she either got from somewhere else or came up with all on her own and will not accept anything less. Then in her focus chapter, the first thing out of her mouth is how much she wants to be a good wife to Rentaro when they have literally just started seeing each other, and asks Chio how to be a better one for Rentaro, seeing as the makings of a good wife are perfect twin tails, which she already has, and housekeeping skills. Reflecting and parodying the old mindset that a lot of girls were raised on, that your value is being pretty and being a good housewife. Later in that chapter, we see her projecting this ideology and insecurities onto Matsuri, when she got upset with her regarding how Matsuri treats her hair because in her hair/twin tails obsessed worldview, treating your hair badly is practically a crime against humanity in her eyes as a girl. Which now leads to what I find the most interesting thing about Eru now. She is someone with these internalized stereotypical gender norms about being a girl and what a girl is and shouldn't be, and a drive to fulfill this idealized feminine role in society, but yet she isn't toxic about it. Normally when you have a character with these kinds of ideologies and values, they are mean and toxic to those who do not follow them. But with Eru, she is now best friends with Matsuri, her complete opposite in how they view what a girl is and isn't. She doesn't despise Matsuri for being different, rather she worries for her, believing that Matsuri's disregard for her appearance could harm her social standing with something like a visible scar or the improper care of her hair. With this single line and looking back at her appearances with this new mindset, I have a much deeper appreciation for Eru. I may not agree with this traditional feminine perfectionist mindset, but this does make her a more interesting character than I think we all originally perceived her as. And now reading the line again of, "Remember, you're a girl, you know," this isn't scolding. It's worry for her best friend's image and social status in her eyes because of her own insecurities. It's sweet to see her care so much for her new friend. It's kind of like Mimimi all over again. No matter how you slice it, Mimimi is a narcissist, as she believes she's the most beautiful person in the world, but they gave her a heart of gold and a hard work ethic. She doesn't believe she rolled out of bed and was naturally this beautiful. She worked hard for it and continues to work towards it daily. Not only that, but she tries to help others reach their most beautiful versions of themselves. Instead of looking down on others for not being as beautiful as her, she would rather lift others up, as long as she remains on top, of course. She wouldn't be a narcissist otherwise. Eru feels similar. She holds this traditional viewpoint of what a girl should be, and she works hard at being so. She wants to learn to be a good housemaker for her precious darling, so she seeks out someone to teach her. Not only that, but since her ideal homemaker persona also includes having perfect twin tails, she has taken it upon herself to be well-versed in taking care of hair. She doesn't believe she's naturally good at this stuff, like Mimimi. She knows she has to work hard towards it and learn, and would rather lift others to be more like her in this idealized form, rather than being toxic and look down on others. And Eru shows this by being worried about Matsuri's image as a girl, like I said. Wow, I really just did spend, Earl, put a timer at the bottom here to show how long I was talking about a single line of dialogue. Either way, way too long of time talking about a single line about Eru of all characters. Let's rapid fire through the next couple. It appears the middle school infirmary is under renovation, so they came to the high school side for treatment, where Matsuri gets all patched up and Eru is impressed by Nurse GI's skill. We then briefly get a cameo of Kurumi and Momiji as they both are having stomach issues. One's too full and one's too empty. Can you guess which is which? Next there are the girls from class 1-4, where Shizuka seems to have also taken a fall during gym class and grazed her knee, to which is what is making Nano extremely nervous regarding the well-being of her wife, as she worries that Shizuka's small and feeble body might not be able to fight off infections from even the weakest of bacteria. Given how she can be blown away by the wind, that worry may be validated. But all of that is fine and good, but we really need to talk about Nano panicking here. Like, this is the same face she gave when her life was being erased and reset. So all of her loved ones and life as she know it being erased, and Shizuka getting a boo-boo, Uto are on the same emotional level for her. Makes sense. I guess I can cut her some slack, she's new to the whole emotions thing. Momoha comes crashing into the infirmary as she is currently hungover and needs a place to lie down to sleep it off. And this clearly must be a regular occurrence as Nurse GI doesn't even question that Momoha is drunk on school grounds in the middle of the school day teaching classes. That is until Kimari comes in looking for her and Nurse GI rats her out saying that she's napping in here. And Kimari begins to scold her on the very things I just pointed out. But Momoha is unbothered by the scolding and even asks Kimari to join in the luxury of a bed because this is the only time Momoha gets to sleep in one and not her sleeping bag in the tent. Though Kimari initially refuses, I guess she lets the intrusive thoughts win and... Back to some more middle schoolers, we have Uto and Rin, where apparently they were doing some wood carving and Rin may or may not have on purpose injured herself with the chisel and seems to be in some sort of hybrid between shock and euphoria from both the pain of the injury and the pleasure of the violence and the blood dripping down her hand, and she cannot form real sentences and speaks more in tongue. And this was apparently a deep cut too as it continues to bleed even with running water over it. Girl's gonna need some stitches. Eru is probably gonna freak at what Rin has done to herself. Oh, and Uto passed out as well, just FYI. Also, can I say, what kind of rich-ass school has wood carving as a class? I was barely lucky enough to have a pottery class in my high school. Next up is our favorite girl failure of Saki, who apparently tripped on a rock somewhere and ended up scraping her arm. Now, we can all laugh at how little pain tolerance Saki has, and acting like a scrape on the arm the same way us men do when we get a cold compared to life-threatening injury, but the really interesting aspect of this section is the fact that GI and Saki seem to be well acquainted. Saki is the only student GI refers to by name, and Saki in turn calls her Nurse Chiyu. And for someone like Saki of all characters to be so casual with not only someone older than her, but also being someone like a medical professional, shows there is probably a long history between the two. Given the weakling that Saki is, she probably has seen Nurse GI many times across her 4 years of high school. And, Earl, play the clip, it's mandatory.
What happened?
I slipped on it
Rock.
and got covered in boo-boos.
Boo-boos, eh?
Then we have the girls from class 1-3, where we see Iku has injured herself during gym class but refused to be taken to the nurse's office for treatment because she sees the pain as a good experience. So Yamame and Hasuwa had to tie her up like a deer that has been hunted and captured to bring her in. But after she hears that the scrape will need to be disinfected, which will most likely sting, Iku is more than happy to accept treatment. The girls from the artistically gifted class give Ms. Natty a hand in taking her to the nurse's office, as she apparently dropped a vase on her leg after being jump scared by a bee that was in the classroom. And I just need to call this out. How do you drop a vase on your leg while standing? And how does dropping a vase injure yourself so badly that you end up looking like this? We even see the injury in the following panel, and it's just a little round circle on her leg. There was no shrapnel from a broken vase or anything of the sort. And I want to reiterate, how did you drop a vase on yourself if you were standing? I guess maybe she was sitting at her desk and lifted the vase? Even then, you dropped it maybe 2 feet. What kind of injury did you sustain from that required you to be walked to the nurse's office? This actually might be more overblown than Saki's injury. At least Saki had a chance of infection. Oh, and Himika found GI getting upset over Danny's injury abnormal and she liked it. Not much else to this scene. Another scrape during gym as the third-year girlfriends of Kishika and Kusuri come into the nurse's office, but Nurse GI's motherly kindness and compassion and reminder that it's okay to cry no matter how old you get gets Kishika into her typical baby fight tizzy fit. Then Kusuri is all patched up and ready to go, with Kishika feeling the shame of letting the mask slip yet again in front of someone. It's finally lunchtime for the nurse's office as Nurse GI admires the good forever spring weather they are having, as she notices a cat out in the schoolyard. And yes, that is definitely a cat and not the vestiges of a human who has now become a cat. And Nurse GI decides to accept what she is seeing and play along with Tama. I gotta say though, this is the most active I've seen Tama since like her introduction chapter. I kind of love the idea behind this face as she is processing what she is seeing, and a thought comes across her mind like, well, I'm now dating a student who has 34 other girlfriends. I guess a person dressed up as a cat and acting like a cat isn't a big deal in comparison. I'll roll with it. But as the playing with the new school cat is happening, Ira takes a tumble, which we haven't seen in quite some time actually, as she freaks out at not being able to kick some butterflies. Also, I love the casualness of Tama going, oh hey, there you are Ira, is it time to head up to the roof yet? Does Tama usually just wander around the schoolyard until Rentaro and everyone else gets out of school? These are questions I need answered. On her way back from lunch, GI comes across a sleeping Nemu blocking the hallway, as she seems to have just collapsed then and there. But after a power nap of a few seconds, Nemu is up and out, which GI somehow isn't concerned with at all considering she just found her collapsed in the hallway. I would think a medical professional would be more worried. After that power nap, Mimi brings in what seems to be an eldritch horror to the nurse's office that looks like it needs some medical attention. Actually no, it's just Usa-chan again, who passed out in an empty hallway from the loneliness. Again. Doc just needs to apply 50cc of Hug's stat and everything is good to go. Lastly, we have the ladies of the administrative department where Yaku seems to have injured herself, trying to help Ahari and Mai as they took a fall, but threw out her back in the process of catching 2 people. I know some people are probably thinking, she has the body of an 8-year-old, how did she throw out her back? I think no matter what age you are, trying to catch 2 grown people's worth of weight at the same time is gonna throw out your back or pull something no matter what. And Nurse GI applies a compress to help Yaku's back get better. It's finally the end of the school day, which, interestingly enough, now we get confirmation that the school day ends at 4:30, as Nurse GI is starting to get nervous about meeting the other girlfriends. But her fears are immediately extinguished as everyone welcomes her with smiles as they are all familiar with Nurse GI and her kindness. Immediately followed by seeing Nurse GI's angry side as she thinks about all these people she now cares about as fellow girlfriends, and the injuries they have sustained recently being unacceptable, which in turn scares the other girlfriends, wondering why she is now suddenly so pissed off looking. And for some reason Nakamura decided to just throw in that Nurse GI is 25 here at the end in a narrator box because why not? You know, I should have thought of this sooner, but I find this whole panel of them saying, "Oh, Nurse GI," very comical. Like I have to imagine Rentaro hits up the group chat to say, "Everyone, I'll be introducing a new girlfriend to the family after school today, so please come to the roof to meet her," and everyone knows the drill by now. So they all start wondering who it is. Like, is it one of my fellow classmates? Another teacher? Another stray Rentaro picked up off the streets like Tama? And then they breathe a sigh of relief when it's Nurse GI because they know she's a good person. It's an amusing thought. And there you have it, the conclusion of the introduction of Girlfriend 35, Nurse Chiyu GI. If you haven't noticed that I've been calling her GI or Nurse GI throughout the video instead of Chiyu, I think I will continue to do so with her name sounding way too close to Chiyo's. This will be to avoid confusion on characters in future videos, as I'm sure there will be times I won't properly enunciate the O and U of their names, so you'll always be sure of which characters I'm talking about. Also, it should hopefully help me not fumble over similar names too often as I already do with Hakari and Hahari and Eru and Nemu, as Earl is well aware at how often I stumble over my own words. Especially if we get some kind of Chiyo and Chiyu duo chapter. Arceus help me if that happens. Regarding the chapter itself, I do appreciate the change of style for a Meet the Family chapter. It's fitting for the nurse girlfriend to see her being a nurse. And now we also learn that the entirety of the Rentaro family are a bunch of klutzes, especially during gym class. But with the change, we lost seeing Gia show off more as a character. She was almost secondary throughout this whole chapter as the focus was more on the barrage of incoming stories from other girlfriends. All she did was say things like, "Let's get you patched up" in every scenario. So we didn't get to see anything new about her, or her quirk ramped up to 11 like most other Meet the Family chapters. Hell, her quirk of being silently angry at injuries was only used twice throughout this whole chapter. So I hope her eventual focus chapter puts her more in the spotlight so we can see more of her as an actual character. Because as she currently stands, I like her design and initial concept, but she seems kind of hollow as a character. Red and Ryu has put it best in their review, that she almost feels like another Yaku, where most girlfriends end up falling head over heels for Rentaro in some kind of way, forcing themselves to confess or something. But with Yaku and GI, it almost feels like a, "Yeah, I guess I'll join you and your other girlfriends, that sounds like fun. Why not?" So I hope future chapters develop a bit more on her, kind of like what happened with Eru's focus chapter. And speaking of future chapters, the pattern continues with Flirty Daily Life Part 8 next week. Time for some predictions. Last time I gave a pool of most likely candidates and I was like 90% right. So now we will be using a similar method to get our next pool. Like I said at the end of that video, we had some leftovers, that being Nano, Mai, Momoha, and Nemu, who are most likely to get a segment. Add in, of course, Nurse GI getting one, and that's half your chapter. Getting the other 5 is a bit trickier. As with the way my elimination process works, that left me with the pool of Su, Kurumi, Aira, Karane, Meme, Yaku, Kishika, Momiji, and Akko. But I think we can slim it down just a bit more. Karane and Kishika just had a duo chapter to themselves not too long ago, so it's possible Nakamura might save them for the next round. So here's how the structure goes. We have Nurse GI at the top for the for sure level, Nano, Mai, Momoha, and Nemu at the very likely level, Su, Kurumi, Aira, Meme, Yaku, Momiji, and Akko at the likely level, and at the bottom we have Karane and Kishika at the less likely level. So from the likely level and the less likely level, pick 5 and write them down in the comments below to leave your predictions. And whoever of this pool doesn't get a Flirty Daily Life is probably gonna get one in the next installment. Of course there is always the possibility we get some girlfriend out of nowhere that gets one, like Matsuri did last time that is unpredictable. Also, I know some people might call me out for leaving Hasuwa out of the conversation, but I have a hypothesis that I need to test out, and the next chapter will either confirm or deny it, that involves any girlfriend added after Meru. And this video has gone on long enough, so I won't get into it here. I'll most likely explain in the next video depending on the outcome. So if you want, you can put Hasuwa in the likely level for your predictions. But that'll do it for me. This video was actually a lot longer than I expected. Blame Eru and my crazy deep dive that is probably not true at all. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed. Make sure to like, leave a comment predicting the next Flirty Daily Life candidates, and subscribe if you haven't. I've been Moonlight150, and I will see you all on the next video. Well, that's just rude.
君の最後は涙じゃないよずっと苦しく背負ってくんだ